Attention has been focused throughout Florida on the joint proposal of State Superintendent of Public Instruction Thomas D. Bailey and Attorney General Richard Ervin for a parent option plan which will be presented to the Florida legislature in April. After a series of conferences on the problems confronting Florida in the field of education in the light of recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions, Superintendent Tom Bailey, the state's top educator, and Attorney General Dick Ervin, the state's chief legal officer, have agreed in principle that a parent option law with tuition subsidies appears to be the most acceptable course of action for Florida at this time. Both Bailey and Ervin are strongly dedicated to the principle of segregation in Florida schools. Both men are equally dedicated to the maintenance of free public schools. The problem is to develop a program of action which would encompass both of these principles within the framework of the existing law. Mr. Bailey and Mr. Ervin think they have such a plan. The Bailey-Ervin plan has attracted a great deal of attention and support. Because of this public interest, WTVT is happy to make its Bureau studios in Tallahassee available to these gentlemen to explain the program. And to begin, I think we need to take a look at the legal background of the problem. Mr. Ervin, the Virginia situation has had an effect on Florida, has it not?
Yes, it has. Yes, it has had its effect. The Virginia decision and the recent federal court decisions has greatly restricted Florida's operation in this field. Our need is to try to implement a program that will allow the public schools to continue as they are now, and at the same time give to parents who object to integrated schools the opportunity to withdraw their child and send it to their children and send it to a private school. In order to do that, it will require some plan for tuition subsidy. In other words, to pay the child's tuition in the school. Mr. Bailey and I are both dedicated to the proposition that we should maintain our public free school system, but at the same time, we want to provide that choice for parents who have serious objections to an integrated school, and for that reason, we have offered this plan. It is not perfect, but we believe it is the very best that can be offered under the legal and practical restrictions that are now obtained.
Let's turn now to Superintendent Bailey. We've heard the legal dilemma that we're in, and when you sat down with the Attorney General to work up this parent option proposal, what basic principles or ground rules did you decide on?
Well, of course, as State Superintendent of Public Instruction, I was particularly interested in the educational aspects of any program. Attorney General Ervin, as the attorney for the state of Florida, is particularly concerned with all of the legal aspects of any bill that may be drawn. But together we agreed on 5 basic principles, and from these 5 points, then we began to develop an actual program. And these 5 points were as follows. First, Florida's system of public free schools must be maintained. Second, no parent should ever be forced against his will to send his child to an integrated school. Third, the fundamental concept of separation of church and state, now part of the Florida Constitution, must be retained. Fourth, the compulsory attendance law must not be disturbed. 5, the contractual rights of teachers under existing law and the retirement status of our teachers must be protected. And this plan, we believe, will accomplish these 5 points.
Did you have something to add to that?
Well, I feel that those objectives that Superintendent Bailey mentioned are certainly the ones that Florida should implement. We do not want to get caught in the situation Virginia found itself in. And if we were to attempt a public school closing program, we would find that not only do we have no authority in our Constitution to do it, but we would have to close all of the schools, which of course would be a catastrophe of the greatest order. So I will say this, that we do not intend to affect any public school by this subsidy plan for tuition except as a last resort. In other words, we would use the pupil assignment law, any other law that would legally adjust the situation up to the point where it was impossible to prevent enforced integration. From that point on, though, the option would be given to the parent under this plan to withdraw the child from the school and send it to a private school with state subsidy for its tuition.
If a parent today wants to take a student out of a public school and put it in a private school, they have the right to do that?
That is true. They can do that, and that is a mandatory requirement of our compulsory attendance law. But as you know, there is no provision for the rank and file of our fine citizens to receive any aid from the state for their children's tuition. And our plan is to try to help those people who are not able to send their children to private school without some assistance.
Oh, Superintendent Bailey, would you run over for us the actual operation of the plan? What will be its effect?
Well, as we see it, the first thing that happens when a parent decides that he doesn't want his child to attend an integrated school, where the courts have ordered integration, that he will then request the county school board to transfer or reassign under the school assignment law his child to another segregated school in the county. And in most instances, I think this would be possible, especially if a county has two or more of the same type schools, like two elementary schools. But if this cannot be done, then the parent can request that his child be withdrawn from school. Now let me go back a step or two. Because of the natural geographic areas as they now exist, and because of the pupil assignment law which we have and which has so far been ruled valid by the courts, little if any integration will be forced in many areas of our state. In addition, it is not anticipated that every parent will withdraw his child from school. But if he does, the first direction to go is to another school in the county or to another school in an adjoining county. If this can't be done, then the tuition subsidy becomes effective for the child to attend a non-sectarian school.
This tuition subsidy, is this going to cost a great deal of money?
No, sir, we do not intend that it would increase the revenue now being raised from taxes for our public schools. It would mean this, though, that where a child is withdrawn from a public school, that only that proportionate part that would otherwise go to pay for his education in the public school would be withdrawn. In other words, about $240 per year per pupil would be withdrawn from the operating funds. As many of you know, the funds the schools operate are known as the Minimum Foundation Program funds, and we would not, under our plan, go outside of those funds in order to get the tuition money.
How about the students now in private schools? Would they be entitled to state aid? Can they go to the parochial schools?
No, under our plan, we would carry on the traditional principle of separation of church and state in education, and only those children who would go to non-sectarian schools would be paid their tuition. We would not change that because we feel that to do that would be contrary to the principle of separation of church and state that has so long been a part of our Florida Constitution.
Well, now, one group of people particularly concerned with this or any other education plan are the teachers. If students withdraw from schools, are they going to lose their jobs?
No, the rights of teachers, that is, their teaching contracts and their retirement benefits, are fully protected as under existing laws. And we cannot anticipate at this time that any teacher will ever lose a job under the parent option plan.
Well, what happens if all the children in a school are withdrawn because of integration and there are only a handful of students left?
Well, of course, in the practical application, we do not expect very much of that. But as a matter of debate or discussion, let's suppose that that is the case. A great deal would depend on what happened to the children who withdrew from school. If they were reassigned to another school in the county, then of course the teachers would be needed in that other school and they would be reassigned to it. But let's suppose that so many children withdrew that it just wasn't economical for the county board to open the school. Well, in a case of that kind, under our Florida law, what happens is the county board can consolidate that school with another school in the county and reassign all the pupils and teachers to other schools. Then when school opens in September, if the demand is great enough, they can reopen the school, and the entire process, from pupil assignment to parent option, would take place all over again. Another thing about teachers, Florida needs about 5,000 new teachers every year to keep up with our expanding enrollments. So in any county which is growing, the teachers will be needed anyway, regardless of this situation.
Mr. Ervin, all this sometimes sounds a little complicated, and I suppose that it has to be, but the big question is it legal?
Yes, I think it's legal and not so very complicated. It does this within the legal framework and restrictions of all these court decisions. We feel that this plan is not only legal, but it serves two purposes. It preserves the public preschool system to those parents who want to send their children there. And it also gives the option to those parents who do not wish to send their children to the integrated school to allow them to go to a private school with assistance of a private subsidy.
Did you have something to add to that?
Well, I think that's very well put, Dick. It's, of course, the best thing that we can envision within the framework of existing court decisions and law. I spent about 40 years in education, most of it here in Florida, and I think that this is the best plan that will give parents this option. And I would like to say here, in conclusion, that, Bill, we appreciate the opportunity to appear on this program.
You have just heard State School Superintendent Thomas D. Bailey and Attorney General Richard Ervin discussing their proposed parent option plan that will be before the Florida legislature when it meets in April.